to not watch this stream. Okay. And it appears that we're online. All right, I guess we'll see where we go with this.
Yeah, I get to watch it now.
I am somebody who is not important, and this is Pilot. He doesn't like you.
I actually should have changed my name a long time ago.
And nobody can see it anyway. I didn't
know,
put it on.
I always, ever since I was a kid, I just always wanted to be a helicopter pilot. You might understand where this is going from here.
All the way since you were a kid, so you hated commies and wanted to pile them up into a helicopter and throw them out to their fucking deserved doom since you were a child?
Oh, fuck yeah. Ever since I was 8 years old, I always had a picture of Chilean dictator Pinochet. He was my fucking idol and my hero.
Praise Pinochet. Yeah, I kind of know how you feel. I don't know how to pilot a helicopter. I don't really want to know how to pilot a helicopter, but I certainly do agree that fucking the collectivist authoritarian.
I'm not saying that dropping commies out of helicopters is right or wrong, but it works. It just works.
Oh, so I don't know about that, but what I do know for sure is the goddamn useless authoritarian collectivists that have been basically ruining humanity since Marx and Engels wrote their stupid motherfucking manifesto has basically permanently ruined the world because it's infected humanity with an absurd and insipid ideology which convinces them to spit it out. Which convinces them to basically
themselves of all responsibility.
Yeah, to default to a collective so that they don't have to take responsibility for any specific action allows
like,
the.
Hey, I might suck ass at this, but I'm just gonna go blame somebody else because clearly it's the fault of another group of people or something.
Going even deeper than that, it actually says that even if you even consider the other side, so if anybody has any detractions towards the collectivist goal, and you even consider their arguments, you're doing bad. You're doing it wrong. You're engaging in wrong think, and therefore are committing blasphemy against the new religion. Because as we know, their specific variety of authoritarian collectivism is their new religion. In my opinion, I think that the human brain evolved the way it did and incorporated specific brain parts in religion. Because if you look at various kinds of studies, like in NMRI machines, people when they're like praying or being religious or having a fucking religious experience, their mirror neurons line up. Their mirror neurons light up kind of as they do when they're talking to somebody. They light up in like the same pattern in the same specific way. And I think that religion was evolved, from humanity via the brain parts because what it used to allow our tribal ancestors to like work together better and mate better, gather resources. It gave them a reason to give a shit about the world. It taught them how the fucking world worked, and it gave them a reason to not kill each other and fucking cheat each other.
It was also more of a coping mechanism either during like hardships and shit like famine, drought, and disease, and basically death in general. Because we don't really know what happens after death, but usually religion is like that substitute to give you like more of a spiritualist meaning in life and kind of keep your hopes and everything high and blah 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 blah. I'm not an expert on the subject either, but I don't know.
I think you're probably right. That religion thing way back then, not only would it codify them and allow them to like work better in the tribal society, but when they would go through trials, it would say, "This is the reason we're going through these trials. This is what we have to do to fix it," and that's what the human brain wants. It's so fucking based, especially on like thinking and memories, on narrative structure that you kind of need that. And I believe we evolved religion to use our own narrative structure brain parts in order to basically tell us how the world works and tell us how to not fuck with each other. And that works good if your civilization cannot fuck with each other, because then you'll be much more likely to survive those kinds of hardships and reproduce.
It works good too when it doesn't go all like what's the term for like just basically a textualist type route, like what happened during
literalist dogma.
Yeah, where everything has to be exactly like whatever it said, and it becomes almost totalitarian in a certain essence. I mean, like in a certain way that then it becomes pretty bad, like what's going on in the Middle East right now. But what's really good is like when it's usually kept in a more of like a spiritualist aspect, where not every fucking single line of text really matters as long as you get the basic picture. Do not kill, do not steal, do not blah 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 blah.
No argument here. There we go.
Which is actually kind of funny because, well, I don't know. A law should be applied by the exact text. It should never be applied like in a spiritual meaning. It's kind of funny though, because it actually works good if it's with religion, but in terms of law, it's actually a bad thing because then you get what you have like in the fucking Supreme Court, where fucking judges they make decisions based upon what they think hidden meanings and words are telling them or something like that. Like basically, what do they call it? Livingist.
Well, there's a difference between like codifying a dogma from a religion to tell you what to do, which incidentally is usually a bad thing, and a law, which is supposed to be very precise and govern behavior. Like laws are things that people agree on. Religions are things that people just fall into.
Yeah, but just because everyone agrees on something doesn't technically make it right.
Of course
not.
A
lot of bad laws that we have.
Of course not. But the whole point of a law is you know, through a whole bunch of human history, in order to function or facilitate a society that works, people have created laws, and the ones that actually work and make a productive society tend to survive.
Yeah.
There's a point at which you can have too few laws and too many laws, but I would say that the human endeavor
essentially grant freedom by telling the government what it cannot do to people.
Yeah, there's negative rights. I think you could get into that downstream, but it's just a more like core philosophical role for the law. It is just agreed upon ethics codified to say, if you do this, there will be a societal punishment. If you do this, there will be a societal punishment, etc. and so forth. Then getting into what the government is doing with negative rights, where negative rights, I guess if anybody's watching this, I'm sure no one is, but if what that would mean is restrictions on the government, things that the government can't do, which is, you know, explicitly what the founding fathers were going after when they wrote the Constitution. They knew that...
It's very unusual with government in general, because generally the government always wants to grant itself more privileges and rights and shit. Basically grant itself more power over the people, which is what it's always done historically, again and again and again. The founders were very fortunate to have them. They saw a repetitive loop throughout history after examining what happened with the Greeks, the Romans, and all the other ancient civilizations, and then they realized that, you know, they needed to construct this type of system that would sort of put that on hold, but eventually knowing too that it would collapse if we did not have our general small revolutionary, you know, either reforms or wars.
They saw that there was too few laws for the king and for England, and too many laws for them. They were pissed off about that because they saw that didn't usually work, and, you know, it feels like you're being pushed out when there's certain laws you have to follow, but then the people ruling over you don't. And we're in a situation like that now. And of course,
people don't understand. Oh, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
And the thing that most people don't understand is that within a society, they think that the United States became so successful the way it did was via conquest, which is bullshit, because if you look at what the USSR did, it got its wealth and a lot of its resources via conquest. And most nations, most civilizations throughout history sort of did the same thing, but they never really lasted. They never really produced such amazing things like we have now. I think it's funny too, like you compare this open, freer society compared to what was in the past with the USSR, for example. They had about 3 times the amount of land mass that we did, yet they were poor as shit, and then we were creating all kinds of crazy technologies, especially during like the late 40s, early 50s, 60s, 70s, and all the way on to today.
Yeah, exactly. If you give people the freedom to, you know, make their own lives for them, and you restrict government so that it doesn't get in the way, people will shine. There will be ups and downs. It goes through a generational cycle wherein that a market will be up, a market will be down. It'll usually crash into recession every 10 years. If you look at the history, especially of the United States, you'll see that. But if people understand that it will go up and crash, that actually is a good thing for them. It means the prices go down, so people who are new to the market can get into it and then make money when it goes back up, because it will go back up unless the government gets involved and tries to do something to stop it. Which, of course, in the 1940s in America, after the Great Depression in the 1930s, the people granted the government way too much power. The government decided it was going to get involved, and it prolonged it all the way until the World War II. And it probably wouldn't have gotten out of it were it not for World War II.
Well, there's a lot of shit even from that area that carried on all the way till today.
Oh, there's a ton of it. In that, for the most recent one in 2008, when it was a government caused problem, because the only reason that the property and all those stupid, shitty, fucking worthless loans were worth as much as they were in theory was because the government said, well, you know, you have to give certain loans to these kinds of people, and for this reason. Has to be for that. If you don't, we're going to fucking sue you and fine you a whole bunch for being racist or being discriminatory. So they did it.
And while we're at it, at the same time, we're the government. We're going to take other people's money and throw it into this whole scheme as well. So we create an even bigger fucking mess.
They started a Ponzi scheme to get people in. They started a Ponzi scheme to get people into those toxic loans, those toxic mortgages, and basically allowed through like really shitty regulation, which probably would have worked better if there wasn't. But they created the bubble because they guaranteed the loans that created the whole housing bubble anyway, because now everybody could get a loan. It was really easy. It was really cheap. But then when things started to go bad, and I think that the thing that really caused this specific crash, or the crash in 2008, was gas prices or oil prices going up. I don't hear people talking about that very much, but I'm positive that's what it was, because I was around during it. I was trying to keep a business afloat during it, and I saw that happening. I saw as soon as those prices went up, and especially when they went up, like in my area, around $4, you have to decide, like, am I going to pay my bills, or I'm going to fucking try to have gas so I can go make money today?
Yeah, pretty much. That fucked a lot of people too. Yeah, it's almost like it almost harkens back to, like, I think in the '70s where they had their own gas crisis too. But this time it happened over a different thing. It wasn't the same as like an oil as caused by a rooted effect from an oil embargo. Basically, the thing that happens when economy crashes, like if government gets involved, it's usually multiple things that the government does, and combination with certain market forces that causes shit to go downhill.
I completely agree.
But yeah, the housing loans and that shitty lending practice that they once had did cause it. It feels like today, though, that we're going to have a similar repeat. Hopefully, not as bad of a hit recession. But if you look at some of the marketing values on houses, like especially out here where I live, like by the Bay Area, you see like it's almost like another fucking bubble. And then all the excuses I hear from other people who live around here is, oh, everyone just wants to live here, use this, that, blah, 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 yada, yada, yada. Oh, but because of the tech boom, this and that. And no, not really. Because eventually those market forces would cope and they'd find a way to get the cost of housing down.
There definitely is another. There definitely is another housing boom, and it's not just localized in any specific place. Any place where there's a whole bunch of people going, there's another boom. I don't think this one is specifically mortgage derived, but it is like other markets are causing people to move. Like where I live, like the free pot and a bunch of extra benefits and stuff are causing a whole bunch of people to move here, which drives up the fucking pricing market. And it's happening almost everywhere else.
There's a lot to do with that.
Illegals have a lot to do with the whole thing, yes. Especially since a lot of them are being subsidized by the government. So, if somebody can charge $1,200 and then get Section 8, they'll get $1,200 for basically doing fuck all. But that's not the real problem there. The real problem is the government getting it, is this boom will happen again, and then eventually it'll pop, and it'll be another recession. And like I said, those are supposed to happen around, every 10 years or so. And when it does, just like last time, the government will say, oh, well, don't worry about this crisis, guys. Just like in the Great Depression, we'll take care of it and fix it. And they do nothing to do so. Everything they do will always make it worse. The only way the government can help during a recession is to get the fuck out of the goddamn way and let people figure out their own way, figure out their own methods by which to take the economy out. Because it will happen if the government doesn't get involved and, prolong it.
Don't worry, ma'am. I'm the government. I'm here to help.
Yes, we will not waste any opportunities to use fear and panic in the market to centralize power to us.
Down. What's with all those garbage cans you knocked down? You broke my car window. Don't worry about it, ma'am. We'll send you a check in the mail if you only sign on this dotted line.
Unfortunately, people usually for it. So when the government says, we're here to fix everything, don't worry, we'll trust us, we'll make everything better for you, they always make it worse. But the government is really good at using that. The government is really good at using that fear in order to get people to do so. And people fall for it every fucking time because they're weak, stupid, and useless. And it's that stupid authoritarian collectivist fucking bug that Marx, I think of it kind of like a virus that, it wasn't Marx, it's much older than that, but Marx really codified it and made it so that if you think of anything else that's not for the benefit of the proletariat, then you're a bad person and part of the oppressor. So that's where, you get doublethink and groupthink and all that stuff that Orwell pointed out very, very accurately, and that we're seeing again today.
Precisely.
But in that regard, people still always fall for it, and the virus continues to spread to various degrees. This person might have it worse than this person. This person might have it not as bad. This person might have it when they're 20, and then might not have it again if they're 40. It doesn't really matter. Usually, when it comes in, the damage is done. And so, the founding fathers would look at the country today with this huge fucking bureaucracy that wasn't put in through any constitutional means. All of this excessive executive power that would really piss them off. And again, they understood that would happen eventually. As Thomas Jefferson is so often quoted saying, the tree of liberty must be replenished from time to time with the blood of patriots and tyrants. Likewise, Thomas Jefferson, in a letter to, I think it was John Adams, said something along the lines of, virtue is the key to our republic, because if you lose virtue in the people, then there'd be no reason for them to be corrupt and no reason for them to say, oh wait, the government getting involved in everything really just fucks everything up, just like it used to in old goddamn feudal Europe, just like it's doing now. And people have definitely lost their virtue, and I think it's specifically because the collectivism virus is wholly and completely infected almost all of us. I mean, even conservatives today, like, are nervous about getting rid of Social Security, or nervous about getting rid of all these other welfare programs that do nothing but inflate the bureaucracy and give the bureaucracy undue power. And
a lot of those pretend conservatives too, they indirectly benefit from that horse shit.
Oh yeah, especially the establishment. The establishment are all in on it.
Oh, I don't know, guys. Like, especially the repealment of the ACA. Fucking dickhead McCain, hypocritically said, I think it was like back in 2015, that it must be repealed at all costs. And then, of course, the fuckhead flips it like 180, like a typical politician, and then gives some arbitrary reason why he couldn't repeal it. I forget exactly what he said, but.
Oh, basically, almost all of them were involved in that, because almost all of them that voted for it at least wanted some variety of repeal. And again, there's a problem there. And we knew this as soon as Obamacare was put through, because once you put in a big government program that provides benefits to millions of people, it's really hard to get rid of it. I thought the Republicans might be able to do it if they actually had some balls, had some fucking goddamn internal philosophical consistency, but they don't. And I guess Mark Levin was right when he said, well, the problem is Democrats are going to put in the biggest problems they can and fuck you immediately, whereas the Republicans will just try to delay it for 10 years and think that they're doing a good job.
Precisely.
I don't think there's really anything that you can do with that politically, because the establishment class is in on it with the neocons and the neoliberals and even the quote-unquote conservatives, in order to further their goals using big government to do so, because everybody's just on that fucking bandwagon if you're in government. It seems to be the whole fucking problem with career politicians these days.
It's a tit that they can't stop sucking.
And I do believe that there is only one fucking possible way to fix all of that, and that is using the United States Constitution to enact Article 5, calling a states convention, having the states come together, and then if you can get it through the three-fourths vote, saying, okay, we're going to throw out the old Constitution, and with that, the old government. So all of it goes at once. Nobody can stop it as soon as you do. And then you put in, basically, an exact copy of the new Constitution, but with a few more codifications. Like in the Article 3 for the judiciary, you say, specifically, you are to interpret this as it is written. Anything that's even approaching bench legislation will be immediately wrought by impeachment via a specific directive of the Constitution. You have to default towards liberty, not the state.
Exactly.
And then it will also require a bunch of other amendments to codify, like say, this is what the Second Amendment actually means. We know what the founding fathers meant by it because we have the Federalist Papers, but people don't seem to know now because a lot of people fought for the argument to say, oh, well, they're talking about a militia. That doesn't mean that everybody can have guns, just the militias. No, in the fucking goddamn Federalist Papers, they specifically note that people should be free to own basically whatever they want anyway. The government shouldn't come in. That's the whole point of negative rights. The government should stay out of it. People should be able to own whatever they want for whatever reason they want. But also that you need to have an armed populace in order to make sure that the government stays in check, because as soon as you're disarmed and the government can just run rampant over you, there's really nothing stopping them eventually, especially as Jefferson noted, when people lose their virtue.
Exactly, and that's the thing too that a lot of people, even the Second Amendment community, don't understand is that, oh yeah, it should have, when you see some guy get busted for some bullshit reason in a certain state that has really bad laws on it that directly infringe upon the Second Amendment, they just say, oh, he should have had a permit, or he should have had this and that. That's not the way it works.
Yeah, that's certainly not the way it was intended to work when they wrote the goddamn thing.
You don't need a fucking permit for a right. That's why I always call that out ahead of time, that even concealed carry weapon permits in general are fucking horseshit and all null and void.
Yeah, I agree.
That was never the intent.
The intent was you could carry around whatever the hell you wanted for whatever reason you wanted, for the purposes of self-defense derived from the natural law that you have the right to defend yourself from no matter who's attacking you. And just as importantly, then you can fight off a fucking tyrannical government, because they know that governments tend to do that, just as all the monarchies and all the fucking everything else did in Europe.
Yeah, it doesn't matter how you carry it either, concealed or not. It doesn't fucking matter. What the fuck does it make a difference? It's just another licensing scheme.
But through the banality of fucking constitutional livingism, fucking living is filth. A lot of those ideas have been eroded, especially locally, where Democrats are in control and where they want everyone to be they want the whole thing to be destabilized, and they only want the criminals to have guns, because if it's destabilized, once again,